So, we are coming to our last speaker session here, and I'm really looking forward to the next two guests that we are having, because imagine running an entire brand, not with a big team of employees, but with a fleet of AI assistants, each perfectly tuned to handle specific tasks. Sounds futuristic? Well, our next speakers aren't talking about the future, they have already built it. Alex Jacobi and Matthias Lange are the masterminds behind With Love and Data, and an AI innovation studio working with top brands like Henkel to revolutionize AI-driven brand marketing. But what truly sets them apart is their agentic AI approach. Instead of overwhelming one AI with too many tasks, they've structured a network of 98 AI assistants, each specializing in a different aspect of marketing, from content strategy to LinkedIn engagement. In this session, they reveal how they've developed their brand world model, a system that transforms over 60 pages of brand strategy into a living, breathing, AI-driven ecosystem. They'll show us how to create AI teams that are efficient, scalable, and most importantly, aligned with human creativity, proving that AI doesn't replace great branding, it amplifies that. Welcome on stage, Matthias and Alex.
Hello, Marcus. So great to be here. Matthias, how are you doing?
I'm fine. Hi, Alex.
Hi.
Great. Before we jump in, let's settle a debate. A lot of people worry that AI will kill creativity and marketing. You two have taken a different approach. Do you see AI as a tool that enhances creativity, or do you think it risks making everything feel robotic?
Okay, so I might get some anger from some people now, but I'm saying it enhances creativity. And I would go so far to say, if you are frightened of AI, you have been never creative, because most people think doing something that has to do with media or art is creative. But just executing an idea into media is not creation. Creativity is really thinking about new things and coming up with new ways. And what we are seeing is that this is the most important and the single thing humans still have to do. Matthias, what's your take on that one?
Yeah, so creativity is transferring your ideas into reality. And AI is helping you to transfer it even faster and with even more freedom of choice.
That's interesting, friends. So let's dive right into your talk. I can't wait for two founders and 98 AI assistants. Let's kick it. Alex, over to you.
So guys, super thrilled with what we all heard today, and we would like to walk you now through a little more strategic view on how we came to what we're building. And as EO fellows, we want to share that with you. Little side note, Matthias and me have been forum buddies for 3 years, and we founded out of one forum this company. So we are totally a product of EO and super happy to present here today. What's super exciting for us today is day number 711. It's 711 days since Matthias and me received our GPT-4 key. It was the 19th of March, 2023, and I tell you, it was 6 p.m. And on that evening, I gave Matthias a call and said, bro, whatever the heck you're doing, we need to do something else. Because in my former life, I've been working with AI, and I've always been telling people AI is gonna be creative. But that was the day I saw it. So what did I do? I started to work with it, and we really took chances to understand this new world we never heard about before. And we observed super interesting things. We observed something very mighty, but it did not follow orders. It output sometimes really bad quality, and it had random behavior. And I was thinking, oh my God, I already had that. You know what they called that? An employee. And I thought, oh my God, how did we solve problems like that? And there's a super interesting way to solve it. You call it a team. A team means distributed work by specialists who each other know what they do, with a good briefing and the information they need. And so I had this very simple idea. I said, okay, let's take a look. How do teams work in the world where I'm coming from? And my background is advertising. And we do have account managers, and these account managers, they communicate with customers. They curate information for a briefing so that the people in the agency know what to do. And then we have copywriters. Copywriters, they develop these crazy ideas. They must think free, and they are very imaginative. And then you have these dudes like me with the big glasses. They are called creative directors. And it's the task of a creative director to know when an idea is right and to give critical feedback. And so you probably might have an idea what came next. So the next thing is I did, and we are now talking about April 2023, I opened up free ChatGPT windows. And the first window said you're an expert account manager working with clients in an ad agency. So the second window said you're an expert copywriter for social media in a digital agency. And the third was you're a picky and very experienced creative director. And what I did then was to just copy and paste the stuff from one window to the next window. And when I shared Matthias on what I did, he had this brilliant idea now 2 years ago to say, okay, if we know this multi-teamwork works best in human, and we know humans and AI are pretty much the same, so let's make an AI team. And what we then started was to build something we call an agent. Yeah, but you know, there are so many myths around it, and it's not what these dudes on LinkedIn tell you where you have to comment like agent and then you get an agent. So Matthias, you as my trusted co-founder, AI engineer, and the most knowledgeable people I know in this world, what the heck is an agent?
So you can imagine an agent like a box. You have a part of intelligence, this large language model. Then you have information. One part of information coming through the input of the user, but the other one is still in the model. So you can give him information, and then have memory. So he remembers things. And the most important part of an agent is tools. And tools means that the agent can do things. They can decide to call this tool or not to call this tool. And this tool is triggering something. So therefore, he has agency, meaning he can decide to call this tool in terms of producing results. And this result is the output from this agent.
So that means I have this box that knows the world we're walking in, that has the tools to do its task, and that can memorize on what it did. So then the super interesting question would be, how do these ones collaborate? Because what we just said and found there is we do have multiple tasks in an agency. So, and there are very many different ways people collaborate, and there are many different ways agents collaborate. So the first thing, Matthias, is the process chain. What's this? How do agents work there together?
Yeah, so in this form, it's a chain. It means that the input of the agent is the output of the previous agent. So they are chained together in a very simple process, and therefore they have no freedom of choice. So they can only talk to each other because they are in a chain. So that's very simple, but also very effective for most use cases.
So what's the reason you have two agents and not one?
Because when you have two agents, you can design this agent for a specific task. So let's say the one agent is designed to have what we saw then in the first task to create something, and the second agent could then have the task to evaluate on the first one, so they can collaborate in terms of task sharing and task collaboration.
So this mimics in the real world, where you probably have an accountant and a marketing manager, and you never want one of them do both jobs, right?
Exactly.
So and this could be a flow. For example, where one agent sells something and the other does the project, like pre-sales, post-sales, in the real world, or like the one gets the briefing, the other writes the copy. But there are different ways of working together. So there's this routing idea that you have a bigger armada of agents. What's that about?
So now we have a little bit more agency. So now we have something called like an agentic workflow. So one agent is deciding what other agent will call next. So he make an active decision if agent 1 wants to call agent 2 or agent 3, depending on the input and output of the agent 1. So you have really like here an let's say agent on rails. So you have a way in the system, but the agent can decide what route to take.
That decision, does it always have to be an agent, or could a human do that too?
It can also be a human, or it could also be some circumstances. Let's say some gates the agent have to fulfill to go to the next level. Let's say in this way, it can be both.
So, and probably that's very interesting about this idea also for all of you guys who think about processes in your company, is there are a trillion ways to do that decision, and you're not limited on doing it with an AI, doing it with a logic, or doing it as human with your gut feeling. Everything there is fine. But then there's something really special, Matthias. There's this really, really mysterious kind of agent. It's the autonomous agent, or as you like to say, it's a chat in a black box. What is that about?
So these are real agents, and real agents means they have fully agency. So you give him a bunch of tools, and he will plan in his mind what to do next, and he will fulfill this tool, put out the output, examine the output, match it against an environment, and then decide what tool to do next. So he's planning and executing and using the tool in the same time.
So he's making my money and I'm going to have vacations.
Yeah, of course. You can give him a goal, and then you have to trust this agent to find the perfect plan to match your goals and execute it. And this is quite heavy and quite expensive because he has free agency, but free agency means also the freedom to make errors. And it's much, let's say you have to guide him more than if he is on rails.
And these things make mistakes like hell, right?
Of course they do, because they are not deterministic, so they are stochastic, and stochastic means they are rolling dice, they are hallucinating, they are very creative, and this process have to deal with it because it's not a bug, it's a feature. These agents, like humans, can come up with new ideas, and new ideas can also mean making mistakes.
So it makes mistakes. And I do think this is one of the most important things we have to bear in mind. It's a theoretically extremely nice idea that these autonomous systems do our work, but they also make our mistakes. And when we think about this crazy automate anything and everything idea, we always take out of account the mistakes, and that we cannot even sometimes look into the decision making. This is why we sometimes call it a black box. So in real life, from all these models, there is always something where humans also have their place, right? So if we use these agents and if we dive in there, so let's take a look at how we do this for the context of brands and the context for brand information. So brands can be described in frameworks. So many of you will have heard about a golden circle from Simon Sinek. And this is a methodology to describe a brand. Matthias, a short sentence on what's the definition of these methodologies we use?
Methodologies are good because when you have something what is hard to measure, let's say creativity is hard to measure, and therefore you need a framework, a method to have something to measure against with it, to have some constraints to see if the answer is good in terms of this method.
Yeah, this is super interesting because, you know, like you say, if I'm doing a science task, or example, if I write code and the program crashes, I know it's not working. And if the test, if it's working, it's working. But is this advertising creative good or not? I have no fucking clue. And probably I have a different opinion than you have. So using these methodologies is a very, very important piece of knowing whether something is good. And this is the key to semi-automate, because if you have no decision on if something's good, you cannot automate it. And so here are a few ideas on how you can measure whether for a brand something is good. So Nike, they say everyone's an athlete as their why. And their marketing message at the moment, for example, it's yesterday, you said tomorrow. And this is a super interesting idea of having this claim. And it really works that everyone's an athlete, because no matter if it's me or you, I think you run in 4 minutes a kilometer faster than me. But for both of us, yesterday was tomorrow to lace the shoes up. So for Starbucks, they say the third space. It's the third space. It's between work and home. There's another place and space where you can rest. And that's the idea of Starbucks. Coca-Cola is saying open happiness as their why. Why does it exist? It's Amazon. They have this mission. They say we're on the mission to be Earth's most customer-centric company. And then you have Apple with their think different idea, or Airbnb, they say belong everywhere. And these are simple examples how brands describe their definition in a methodology. So in real life, this brand information can span over 60 pages. You know, all of us working in marketing advertising, we know this super thick PowerPoints with everything defined in there. And actually, it's often very good, but no human is able to use that because it's so much. And you can run into an agency and ask them what's the reason to the belief of the customer you're working on. You know what? They won't know, even they worked for 3 years on the customer. And this is where comes AI in, and the chance of AI. So you can describe a brand. You use a golden circle, like the why, the how, and the what of the brand. You use the brand promise, like what am I promising to my customers? What's the tone of voice? Am I a very well-suited up a banker? Am I more hip-hop street guy like me? Am I a very well-thought speaking person like Matthias? Everyone has his or her own tone of voice. And that's a big part of what a brand is. And then you have the audience. You really need to know whom you are talking to. So, for example, you need to know your target groups. You need to know your segments. You need to know your personas. And then you need to know what you want to sell them, because you need to know what's the product, what's the details, what's the accessories of your brand. And then, and we already had that in the talk before, which I found very interesting, you need to have a content strategy. Like, what's your message? What are the core messages people need to hear from you? And the content formats, how are you bringing them in? And we actually, you know, we have half an hour now. It's probably not enough time to really dive deep into how these simple frameworks work. But for one example, this is how a golden circle, it's actually ours, looks when you feed it into a machine. So it's a very simple text file. Matthias, why is it text?
Because the large language model are trained on text. And if we use, for instance, Markdown and special annotations, they can use it much easier. And it's really a hard task to describe a brand on pages on pages on pages of brand information and to make it actionable from an agent, because agents have agency, and that means the information you give in is the output result related. So you have really a lot to do to have this good documents as information for the agent that the results are good.
And this counts for very special systems like the stuff we're building, but that is also for ChatGPT, for you guys using ChatGPT, which is an amazing product. But if you upload an PDF, you can never expect it to act so accurate on the information than whether you would use text like that. So this would be a real experience share from us to talk to LLMs in text and not in big files or stuff like that. So, excuse me. The next thing we talk about, and we need to talk, is about processes. We just now talked about the information. So that helps the AI systems and the humans understand the world we live in. But once we understand this world, we need to act in this world. And it's the interesting thing in a team, who is doing what and when should it be done? And there's one thing with LLMs we really, really have to talk about. And this is a big mistake people make. An LLM is not a person. You cannot ask an LLM something because it's all persons. You have to imagine an LLM was built by throwing the whole interwebs into the system. And it saw everything from crazy business dude with BlackBerry to the mother with a child, to Albert Einstein. It's all in there. And you really need to know whom you're talking about. But because if you're not doing it, you're going to meet your biggest enemy. And you know what? It's not Elon. Your biggest enemy, it's not mini-me. It's even not Montgomery Burns. You know who your biggest enemy is? It's Michael. Michael Smith, the average data labeler. Matthias, what happens when Michael is answering my query?
Yeah,
and why?
If you have a general question, you get a general answer, because these models are trained on data and on feedback, on human feedback. And if your answer is not, if your question is not precise enough, you get an average answer, and nobody wants to have an average answer on a precise question. So therefore, make up your mind and design a system for producing good results and not average, means defining the role right.
And you can really think in simple terms of asking the right person. So let's say, what kind of persons do we have in an ad agency? We have this. We have the account manager. We have the copywriter. And we have the creative director. And now let's take a look on how we can work with these roles in AI. So if you have an account manager that collects information, it's something that these deep research models can do very well, Matthias.
Yeah. So
what are they about?
These deep research models are really agents because they have the tools. Let's say they can scrape web, so have access to websites, and they can decide how long they will run on these websites to produce a really good report, a really good briefing. And when they decide when this briefing, this report is done, and then you will get it, or another agent will get it as a briefing. So this is real agency, what you can see with deep research.
Yeah. And if you need to create information for your brand, probably these deep research tools are a very good tool to do that. And we are really, really, really asking you to really think about it, because choosing the right tool in the right moment, or asking the right person in the right moment, is totally key to success here. When we have the copywriters, what they do is they expand a thought from that one little idea and briefing to 1,000 ideas. And this is something these traditional models do well, Matthias, right?
Yes. So the general base models like GPT-4o or Sonnet, they are trained on massive amounts of internet data, so they can simulate or hallucinate very lot of ideas they saw already. They recombine it with no effort at all, and then you can pick and choose based on your criteria what fits to your need best.
And the very interesting thing, you said it already with hallucinating. I'm always joking that I made money with hallucinating, because when you run an ad agency, you do hallucinate. You imagine things that do not exist. And actually, in creative processes, hallucinating is an amazing feature and not a bug. You really force it. And I think it's very interesting also to know you have all these new deep research on these fancy models. Some people think, oh, that's the old models and this the new models. No, that's wrong. These models do something very well. And this stuff, Matthias, right, is what they are the best models to do that. Even the fancy models, the modern ones, they are not good in that, right?
Exactly. So if you really want creative writing, use the good old base models like GPT-4o or Sonnet from Anthropic, because they do this job better than the new reasoning models.
Yeah, yeah. But there's one job these reasoning models do well. So let's take a look at that. So it's the creative director. And the role of the creative director is to reduce all these ideas and this and that, and we could do this, into that one idea. And I'm a big fan of Rick Rubin. So some of you might know him. He's one of the most important music producers on earth. And he said, knowing when it's right is one of the biggest skills one can have in a creative industry. And knowing when it's good is something the best of the best master their art in. And Matthias, these are the models that can know when it's good. How does that work?
Yeah, so they're producing thinking tokens. So really, they think through all the aspects of the tasks they gave. Let's say in this case, creative director, he will assess the output of the copywriter very hard in terms of the methods and think it through, evaluating it, and give a good opinionated result of that as input for the copywriter.
So it really thinks about it and thinks, oh, how does it affect this? Does this message affect this part of my brand? Can I say this according to my brand? And all these thoughts, and this is extremely handy, is the model doing itself. So you do not have to point it to every question. You can give it the overall task, and if it's a good one, it goes through. And you have models like O1 and O3 Mini, which are very scientific. And then you have this DeepSeek R1, which is good and different, which is a little more creative, which is not that scientific, but in creative work, I think it's sometimes more interesting than these really huge models. What's your take on that, Matthias?
Yeah, so the collaboration and the strengths and weaknesses of all these models. So one models are good for creative work, and this model is good for evaluating, like say a critic, yeah, who is critiquing the chef, but is not good at cooking. So if you combine them, they have really both skills to give it to a new level.
So if we take all this together, we learned at the moment, this is the way an AI-built agency can work. Let me drive you through this a bit. So you give some input. You have the account manager. It uses a deep research model to gather information. It uses a tool, and it writes its results into the memory. So this is a whole agentic approach, Matthias, right?
Exactly. And you have really to decide what information you want to share with the next agent. So you will not give in a whole pile of everything to the copywriter, but only these things the copywriter needs to fulfill their task. So sharing information is key here, but only the right information.
And this right information is usually what we call in advertising a briefing. And this information is being handed over to the copywriter. And as a human, you can make a decision whether you decide it goes there or the human. It doesn't matter. But someone decides it goes to the copywriter. And the copywriter, you see, copywriter does not need a tool. Copywriter uses information and briefing, the input, and memory in the output. And then it generates ideas, right? And then these ideas are handed over to the creative director. The creative director assesses all these ideas uses the information from the brand, like the golden circle, like whatever was defined, and the briefing. And now happens something special, Matthias. It's not directly going to output. What is happening here?
And now we have this routing. So the direct graph data is deciding, they have agency to decide if this is a good result or give it back to the copywriter, including the feedback, to rework it. Because here we have a loop, a recursive loop, and it runs as long as the graph decides if it's good enough. And then it goes out to the customer or us, to the human, to get used.
And this is also a principle you see in real life. Every good actor, even Brad Pitt, needs a director. So there's a reason these two roles exist, because these roles, they have a goal conflict. You cannot think free and come up with crazy ideas when you want to be compliant, and you cannot be compliant if you really need to think free. And the same applies to these AI models. And if they have the right information, these feedback loops are in real life, and with AI, the total game changers. And these are workflows that are in use with consumer brands you buy and use. So this is not a theoretical idea, but this is more a deep view into the ideas of the systems we operate. And the good news for you guys is you can build this for yourself with any tool you want to. You could use it with Claude, you could use it with ChatGPT. It's up to your imagination on what you do. So if we put it all together, you build a team, and for every step, you select a talented person, which is the AI model. You remember, is it a thinking, a creative, is it a researching model? And then you give it the right task. And we talked about this only a bit today, but our colleagues who talked before, they introduced like this role and the task and the context. And it's so important to really say what you want and to define the task. And then you give it all the information it needs. And you need to give all the information, because every information you are not giving, who's going to answer it?
The average data labeler.
The average data labeler. And you don't want that dude on your brand, bro. Never, ever. So, and then you give it the right tool and you're on to do it. So, if you're now thinking, up to the island, I have a bad news for you. There is no total automation. There's so many things these models can do. We won't elaborate on that today. But what we experienced in nearly 2 years of working with agencies, of working with brands, it's that it's co-working. The roles are shifting, but the humans, they are getting even more important. They are getting even more important. And our main learning after building 98 agents, there are 2 things we would never, ever give to an AI. It's our intention on what we want, and it is our responsibility for the result. It's not the AI that posted that bullshit. It's you who gave the AI the permission to do it. And it will always be like that. So, we are with Love and Data. I'm Love. Matthias is Data. Thank you so much for letting us talk to you here today. Excuse my voice, I have a little cold, and I want to do some shameless advertising. Some of you might know I'm the EO chair for my EO in Rhein-Ruhr. And for all our homies who are close to Düsseldorf, we will hold a brand building AI hands-on workshop on the next EO mega event on the 23rd of March. And we will really dive into the methodologies we had today. And we will have a very, very interesting person there, Guido Bayer. He's the inventor of a very, very well-received framework. And he will, together with us, help you guys build AI automation that communicates on point with your brand. So thank you so much. And high five to Matthias, the coolest co-founder on the planet, just to let you know.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Alex and Matthias. That was very impressive. And I called all my Michael Smith contacts already and quit the friendship because they're apparently my biggest enemy, as I learned today. We have only time for one really short question because we're really a little bit tight on the time. And that was the question is, do you have a technical person who is integrating all these agents? Because there was the question of whether you connect actually APIs and everything, like how do you connect all these agents and how do you streamline the processes?
Matthias, that's your part.
Yes, so we have on our own platform. I was written it 2 years ago, and it's extending, and it has all these agents. They are organized in tasks and jobs, and for each job and task, the human can decide what workflow he wants to do. So it's really a co-working space that the human is triggering in the chatbot, the start of the agents. So he's also in charge and he sees the results. So there are one agent and multiple agents in the background, but the human is always in the driver's seat to decide who wants to talk next.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I could ask so many more questions, but there are more events to come as you just showed. We'll definitely see each other again. Thank you so much for your contribution.